All right. I'm hey, by the way, just so Mark hears this, the Eagles next year will have 27 free agents in 25, all coming up on expiring contracts. And a coach, if he saves it, he saves the head coach's gig, which means what? He gets a job. We'll be changing coordinators out again. Let's bring in Mark Holmes. They got their own issues there in Dallas when it comes to the coach.
You seem a little salty today.
Not salty. It's called conviction, my friend. Something that Cowboy fans don't know anything about is conviction. You know what conviction is?
Yeah, I know what conviction is.
Well, I know you do because, you go up to Vermont and you help old ladies across the board. You milk trees for sap and you do all that. I know, Mark. You're quite the fella.
What's kind of funny? I'm hearing you talking about the 27 free agents that you have next year and things. The Jalen Hurts situation where he's on the hot seat and everything else, and the coach who, it's up to the offensive coordinator to save his job and everything else. I don't think you realize what has happened in front of you.
Tell me.
You become the Dallas Cowboys. That's the shit that's going on right now is what we normally deal with on a weekly basis. When you hear Jalen Hurts getting trashed now by the media, that's the Dallas Cowboys quarterback all the time. Every year we always have 20-some plus, 25 plus free agents every year that we have expiring contracts. Our coach is always an idiot and on the hot seat and everything else, and it's up to the offensive coordinator to save them. Your question about if Kellen Moore can save your head coach.
Am I wrong?
Oh, I mean, that's one way to look at it. He didn't save Jason Garrett.
No, Dave. He's been. I never said he was the right hire.
Mm-hmm.
I've never said that. I said that I think the guy on the other side is going to be the right hire.
The thing is, I think actually Nick Sirianni is probably in a no-win situation.
There's no question about it because Mark, if you're the Eagles, figure this out. If you're the Eagles and he does all those things and they win and they go to a divisional round,
are they going to give Nick Sirianni credit?
Say they get beat. No, say they get beat in the NFC title game.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Eagles really going to allow another guy like Shane Steichen to walk out the building, or are they going to sit there and hire him and force Nick out or into another role into the organization? See,
yeah,
you're just going to go on that complete conveyor belt again? I personally don't think it here. Now, listen, I want to start this off with you on something that James Jones said the other day.
Oh, yeah.
On FS1. And also, he did it on Speak for Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
He said something about Dak Prescott, and they were talking about Jalen Hurts here. Now, I got to tell you something. You're right about one thing, and that is Dak Prescott gets more heat than any quarterback. Jalen Hurts is 2-3 in the postseason, albeit he's gotten to a Super Bowl. But do you know how many quarterbacks that are the top 10 quarterbacks that have winning records? There's only two. Mahomes,
I know.
Mahomes and Burrow. They're the only quarterbacks that have winning records in the postseason.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott's 2-5, albeit I get it, but he takes more heat than any other quarterback in the National Football League because he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the one thing that I will say is he's got 9 years in. You kind of know who the dude is. You know what I'm saying? He's 9 years in. Where are you going next year with him?
I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing. Is it Dak Prescott or is it the system that we are dealing with? If we were winning playoff games and doing great things without Dak before, and now all of a sudden we're not, then I'd say, okay, then it's definitely that guy because we used to do great things, but we ain't done great things for 29 years. And so here's the thing. let me ask you this. Let's take Trevor Lawrence's playoff win. He threw 5 TDs, 5 interceptions, 4 in the first quarter where they were down 27.
And he's 1-1, by the way, for the
right.
record.
He's 1-1. So they were down 27-0 in the first quarter. Their defense only gives up 3 more points. They win 33-30, I think. So 5 TDs, 5 interceptions.
Come back on the Chargers.
Okay. So you look at that performance. And then you have Dak Prescott last year against Green Bay, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions, 400 yards. So was Trevor Lawrence's, because they won, to Shady McCoy's point, that, well, wins are all that matter. Was Trevor Lawrence's performance good and Dak Prescott's bad?
No.
Or were they both bad?
Those are team. This is what I think James Jones is referencing. I'm going to play this for you here. And I'm sorry the volume is a little low here, but I want to play this here for you. This was on Speak for Yourself, and I'm going to play this here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Better than them. I mean, this dude was 5,000 yards last year, led the NFL in touchdown pass. There's nothing Jalen Hurts except running the read option and maybe the tush push that he does better than Dak Prescott. And I like Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts is going to be a really good quarterback in this league. But Dak Prescott, at this point right now in the National Football League, does everything better than Jalen Hurts at that quarterback spot.
Mm-hmm.
Does he work better? Is it a team goal, or are we talking about a quarterback? That's
where it goes back to. Now, I'm not going to say he's played great in the playoffs, although he did retire Tom Brady. He did pretty good against Russell Wilson. He actually went toe for toe his rookie year with 3 TDs and 304 yards against Aaron Rodgers. But, when we don't have a linebacker and we can't stop the run, it's a team sport, bro.
You know what, though? And I think there's 2 arguments to this, and I think it does defend because you're not paid on winning Super Bowls in this league. Mm-hmm. And here, I want to play. I mean, my Xander just said it right. So,
why you seem stressed, G? Are we talking to player or are we talking to team success? The player. Sorry. There's nothing that Jalen Hurts does better than Dak Prescott at the quarterback spot but the read option. He don't throw better than him. He don't throw with anticipation better than him. I mean, this dude was 5,000 yards last year, led the NFL in touchdowns pass. There's nothing Jalen Hurts except running the read option and maybe the tush push that he does better than Dak Prescott. And I like Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts is going to be a really good quarterback in this league. But Dak Prescott, at this point right now in the National Football League, does everything better than Jalen Hurts at that quarterback spot.
Does he win better?
Is it a team goal or are we talking about a quarterback? Because I put winning on the team. Because you need defenses and all that. So I don't.
How do you take that comment, Mark, as a Cowboy fan? Because it made me think about this. Salaries are dictated on what you do with your numbers, and Kirk Cousins is the poster child for that. Okay, I mean, he's not paid on winning, and he's made more money than any quarterback in the history of the National Football League, including Tom Brady. You tell me, I mean, is Dak Prescott? Now, look, Dak plays a lot like Favre in the postseason. Here's a Favre line, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Yeah.
Three touchdowns look good, and he plays a lot like Tony Romo. They're a lot like each other in many ways. They'll make a spectacular play, and they'll make the boneheaded play.
But sometimes they get bailed out.
My problem comes down to this. When I look at Jalen Hurts, there's not a chance in hell I would build my team around Jalen Hurts over Dak Prescott. There's just no way.
I can just sit here today. Okay.
Well, no, but here's the one thing that he does do better.
What's that?
This guy knows how to, for whatever reason, make everyone better around him. I'll say something to you. Wait, hang on here. He did not have a good year last year. Do we agree? He was 30 turnovers.
I agree.
But watch this. Well, he made a $30 million A.J. Brown have a almost 1,600-yard year. Yes. He had a guy on the other side with 1,200. There's a guy in Chicago now that just signed a contract who was on a one-year deal, and DeAndre Swift, who the Lions gave up on, who just signed a 3-year, $10 million a year deal. He's made every guy around him successful. Did he struggle? Okay. Isn't the objective of that player to make everyone around you better? Dak doesn't make everyone around him better.
Bro,
he's made one guy. He's made one guy better.
Bro. But no, that's where you're wrong. Because I can take, from Green Bay. God, I'm getting old and having brain farts. I'm hoping I'm not getting dementia here.
Running back?
No, wide receiver. He was with Green Bay. He's free agent out there right now. Yeah, Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb, 2014, 2015 was beasting. The last 3 years he was with Green Bay, his numbers plummeted. He was literally down to 400-some yards. Green Bay said, see ya. We're done. He comes to Dallas, has almost 900 yards, 6 TDs, and gets a $27 million contract to go get Deshaun Watson to throw to him, where he reverts back to the 400-and-some yard guy and proceeds to get cut, goes back with Aaron Rodgers, and proceeds to have 400-some yards. You can take Dez Bryant's yards per completion. His most by a yard was with Dak Prescott. You can take a guy like Allen Hurns, who ended up basically being just about off the NFL, comes to Dallas, has his career numbers. Everybody who then leaves, typically, most of the time with the exception of Amari Cooper, just drops off the face of the earth.
Amari Cooper was forced out because the salary cap into $20 million. They didn't want to pay him.
Well, they don't want to pay anybody. And I can go back to where you're saying, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. I'm not saying that he's not making people better around him. The fact that he can run in the same way that RG3 running outside, you were so worried about him going to the house that the defenders are having to come up. If the defenders are coming up, I got an easy pass to a wide open wide receiver. It's not like I've got to throw in a tight window. That makes the team better, that style of football. But it's not obtainable.
Let me say this to you, Mark. It's the other way around. The team makes him better. If he was so good, the Eagles wouldn't have had a 7-game losing streak. I get that, and I appreciate that, Trops. But I'll make this point to you too as well. You know, when I look at Dak Prescott, does he exude confidence in your opinion when it comes to winning a title, or do you have a little more confidence when you're sitting around Hurts? I feel a little more confident around Jalen than I do around Dak. I don't feel a champion. You do?
I don't feel like my team feels like a champion. You know what? You guys can get excited because you're constantly looking at problems and you're trying to solve problems. Let's be real here. This is not the 90s where the Cowboys had too deep on everything that with guys that could be starters. We go in with the bare minimum. We literally have an owner saying we're going to do more with less. We literally went to the playoffs without having a linebacker on the roster. Your buddy Stephen Jones and his whole position flex of saying, you know what, we're going to take Tony Pollard and we're going to make him an everyday down.
So you penalize Howie because he does his job?
No, I'm not. I'm actually praising him. I'm handicapped because of my guy. You can't honestly look at the roster that the Eagles had on their offense and say it's the same as what Dak Prescott's working.
Well, let me throw this one at you. Who do you think is over or underachieved more in his job, Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott?
I'm not going to say that Jalen Hurts is underachieved. I think he's actually not had a good career. And I think that he has been a difference maker for that team. He fits what the Eagles want to do.
See, well, here's the difference between
I don't think that, see, and here's the
difference between Cowboys and Eagles right there.
You don't have to disrespect one to
You're looking for what? Being decent? I'm looking for Lombardi's. I think he's kind of underachieved in a way because this is about winning championships. You guys in Dallas have lowered the bar so far. You're like Pittsburgh now. Hey, we haven't had a losing season in 17 years. Since when was that the benchmark in Pittsburgh?
And yet y'all only have one.
Dallas has lowered their expectations on yearly, just wanting to hang around the rim. The reason I get pissed off at the Eagles is because of the 27 free agents that will be in 25 and the constant turnover in the coaching staff. You sit and you go over the same regurgitated problems every year. It just doesn't change.
You do realize
it's just a different year.
See, you're actually panicking and thinking that there's 25 guys that are free agent. Well, no, you're actually you do realize that on average it's about 38 to 40% of everybody's roster turns over every year. You know that,
not
right?
On one side of the ball like that. The Eagles aren't going to. Who's being turned over next year offensively? Nobody.
Well, you're looking at your defense.
That whole unit, maybe.
I can lose without you. Okay. You know what? I would actually look at that and say, this is an opportunity to figure out who should be here. If you're good, I'm going to find a way to keep you next year. If you're not, if we don't have any better results, then you can get the hell out.
Let me throw this at you here. Do you believe that there will be a deal signed by the Cowboys with
Lord.
CD, Dak, or Parsons in a week?
No. Because here's what you know. Come on. You know Stephen Jones and crew. You know what they like to do? They signed Diggs the very first day, literally right after the press conference, it was announced that Diggs had got his contract last year. What Jerry likes to do is he likes to try and circumvent the agents and stuff. He likes to get them one-on-one. You know, hey, Dak, come on here, man. Let's get this thing hammered out here. You know, in between practice and stuff. That's why they like to do this stuff. They
I got to
like
read
that personal touch.
read this. All I keep hearing is Dak is 9-4 versus the Eagles. If it's a team game, can't have it both ways. Make winning a stat, and it fits the narrative that the team blame it when the Cowboys lose in the playoffs. It's fair comment there. And also Sydney here. You shut down Hurts, Eagles can still win. You shut down Dak, that's all, folks.
That just makes the point right there. It's all Dak. Either you win or lose with Dak. That says right there, shout out to Sydney family with that big super chat. You're 100% right. And it's the same thing. If this is the exact same thing we have with Tony Romo, either we win because of Tony Romo or we lose because of Tony Romo, because you don't have a team good enough around them to stop. And as I point out, look, what if Kansas City doesn't make the stop down there in overtime? Their defense. Is Pat Mahomes now a lesser quarterback? No, the defense saved him. Pacheco picking up big first down and big yardage. Without those things, they don't win the Super Bowl. Does that say that, you know, Pat Mahomes has to have things to win? Yes, like every quarterback does.
Well, he has nothing except Travis Kelce here. Let me get this. Jalen Eagles.
True, but that's a pretty good weapon right there.
No, it is. You're right.
Okay.
And we'll change again in 4 if he's bad. Absolutely. I agree with that. I want to throw this. I want to read something to you. And you know what? Mark, I'm going to give you a little bit more love here when it comes to Michael Parsons.
Lordy. Now some shit's going to hit the fan here. You're showing me love. The world's coming to an end.
Yeah. Okay. Here.
Yeah, officially, Dan Sileo is giving love.
Hold on here. Hold on. This is what one of your fabulous coaches that helped you win 3 Super Bowls, one as a D-line coach, and also as a defensive coordinator in Dallas during those great times. That was Butch Davis. And this is what he says about Micah Parsons here. He gets great pressure on the quarterbacks and sacks. You never know what the scheme is, though, for him when it comes to the run game. You never really know what they're asking him to do when it comes to his responsibility in the run game. Teams throw significantly more today than they do in the past. They may just want him to heat up the quarterback, dropping coverage, and just get hits on the quarterback and TFLs. In the 60s and 70s, 80s, and 90s, more run plays, play action. Buffalo became more passing, 11 personnel significantly in 2000. Remember how many teams played with 2 tight ends? Redskins at times would have 3 tight ends, max protection. You're even seeing 4 wideouts in games sometimes. And now you're even seeing college teams go to 5 wideouts. Butch's contention is this. He's never going to be Lawrence Taylor, Dan, if you're looking him to be Lawrence Taylor, because in today's NFL, the run is not as significant. And that's why teams have moved off the run when it comes to running the ball. They're more in third down. He said 71% of the time you're going to be a nickel package when it comes to NFL games, because the teams in the league want to throw the ball around the yard, because just look at the significant throws that you have.
Right.
His contention is that, hey, if you're going to hold it against Parsons, that Parsons is not a great run guy. Arizona, Buffalo kind of showed us that. That's not how you're going to win Super Bowls. You're going to win Super Bowls with this guy getting heat on the QB, TFLs, and being able to have more responsibility on what he's being asked to do. Butch said that if it was to him, he'd get him out of the run game. He'd put him more on the weak side.
Yeah.
And keep this guy fresh by the end of the year, because he says today's NFL is different than it was when Lawrence Taylor played. Hey, LT was a complete player. Me and him had a conversation, Mark. You played in the trenches. Aaron Donald, I said this to him. I go like this. I never really thought Aaron Donald was a complete ball player. And he goes, wow, that's interesting. Why? I go, well, he runs around blocks. He doesn't care about the run. He gets in that 3 technique. He gets up the football field in that 3 technique on first, second, and third down. Mark, he takes himself out of plays. He runs around blocks sometimes. But what does he do? He creates havoc. He gets tackles for losses. He's a tremendous pass rusher. He's made a career. He's not a complete defensive player where you play the run like Sapp and you pass rush. They don't really have an emphasis in today's game. So maybe, to his point, maybe Dan Quinn misused him.
The thing I look at with Mike is he's 6'3" and about 245. If you have him every down as basically an edge rusher and he's going against tackles that are 320, 330, getting double teamed and stuff, by the end of the season, his ass is just going to be worn down. Yep. And if I'm running at him, the running back is reading the offensive lineman's ass. If I got a guy that's 330 coming down on Micah Parsons, he's going to win. And that's where you can't have him trying to hold up the run. We have this whole thing that, unfortunately, Micah is being Dak Prescott. That's Dak Prescotted, I should say, because everybody's looking to say, well, he sucks at the run, man. He's not doing it. He's not winning. You can't expect him to win the whole game, especially when your defensive front is not good, because ideally what you want to have is Micah Parsons, your job is outside contained and making sure you cause havoc in the backfield. I need a defensive line that can establish the line of scrimmage or even push it back another yard. And you and I, now me as a nose guard, I was 220 at JMU. I was light in the ass. And what I know is when I took on a double team, I'm back here with the safeties. Because I don't have the weight and enough ass.
Me and Jerome were 290.
Yeah. And exactly. You were a big guy, so you could drop the anchor and clog up the middle. When you have the middle pushed out and he's going upfield, you're creating lanes, and everybody's, oh, he sucks at the run. It's not his responsibility. That's where the defensive line has to hold that line and keep
the middle of it. Let me get to Trops here. Every team that beat the Cowboys in regular season and playoffs ran the ball down the Cowboys' throat. That theory doesn't work for us. Go see the Rams and the Green Bay game.
It goes back to the interior defense. See, here's the problem. Fantasy football has fucked up everything, okay? People will look at an interior defensive lineman. They'll see, he's got 40 tackles and 3 sacks. Man, the guy's a bum. He's not doing anything. If you're equating that to a linebacker's number or an edge rusher's numbers, yeah, it does look like crap. But people don't understand that your job in that interior defensive line is to hold up the line so the linebackers get the glory. You are there to make sure the quarterback can't step up. If the quarterback can't step up, the edge rushers are going to be getting sacks left and right.
That's what changed in Dallas there, because in my opinion,
we've not been good on the interior.
No, because you know why? When Jimmy ran to 43, we had one gap techniques. There was no two gapping. I think two gap defensive tackles. Here's what I would do with Mozzie. I think the guy, they're completely coaching him wrong. This is what I would do. Put him in a 3 technique, run him up the field, see what he can do, knock guys around. Because right now, what you're asking him to do, he's not going to be effective at. He wasn't a 2-gapper when he was at Michigan. Right. He just wasn't. When Dan Quinn got him last year,
that's my biggest worry right now.
He's slow off to start because he doesn't know what technique he's being asked to play. Believe me, Mark, when they asked me to play nose, I was slow, and I was one of the fastest guys. I ran a 4.8. And so when I got to the pro, I'm sitting there going, I'm playing two gap. So I hope that Zimmer, and I think Mike will do a better job of that here, okay? I do. Let me let me get to this next question here. Do you think the not security of Mike McCarthy's job, how does that affect the team, you think, yearly? Year in and year out, when everyone knows in the room that this could be the last year that Mike McCarthy's the head football coach and there's no stability at that position. Not saying that there's a lot of stability around the league, but in Dallas, it seems to be accentuated more that every year Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat. And here's a guy that's won 36 ball games in 2 years. He's been a success with Dak. 3 years. He's been a success winning those 36 games in the last 3 years. I mean, you know, he's coached the Packers and the Cowboys, two of the biggest brands in the NFL's history. And he's done a pretty fair job of it. I mean, how does that affect the roster year in and year out?
I don't think it does, because you're always on the hot seat in Dallas. After the first year, it was like, oh, Mike McCarthy could get fired. You know, even though Dak got injured and we ended up 6-10, and Washington wins the division at 7-9. Every year he's on the hot seat. How is it any different? Jason Garrett went to his contract end twice. So I don't think that that's really an issue. And to me, it's still crazy when you think that, you know, you had Dak Prescott, who, be it he had a broken thumb, with Kellen Moore, who's thought to be a great genius. He leaves, and your quarterback's got 36 TDs and 9 interceptions and, you know, playing seemingly lights out. That's Mike McCarthy. He was calling the plays. That's the difference right there. Yeah, your team has not made, playoff success. Do I look at Mike McCarthy and say, well, damn, Mike McCarthy, you failed. You know, how could you not win a playoff game not having linebackers on there? You know, you could just make some shit up right there. When I look at the failure, I don't look at the failure as Mike McCarthy. I look at the failure of the Joneses not doing what's necessary. We know we've had problems on the defensive line forever. We know we were literally with a rookie linebacker. We're looking to be a starter that was a mid-round pick, and a guy who's made of glass.
Cowboys want to help Dak
about it.
Get a good running back cheap. Right. Oh, I'm going to go there in a second. Mark, would you trade for Khalil Mack?
For Khalil Mack? I think Khalil Mack's better days are behind him.
Yeah, 17 last year.
Okay. Here's my thing. I think I'm okay with D-Law, with Sam Williams, with Goldson and stuff. I need more of a nose guy. I need interior defensive linemen more than I need edge rushers.
Let me throw this at you.
That's our problem. We had so many guys last year that were good at rushing outside. We didn't have the interior defensive lineman. This goes back to Stephen Jones and his position flex. Well, if you're a tackle, then you can be an interior tackle, a nose tackle and everything else. Or if you're a defensive end, you can play tackle. It doesn't work that way. You're too undersized to be good when it comes to really stopping the run.
I appreciate everybody on today here. We got over 1,000 on Twitter right now and all the platforms you guys are all on right now. We so appreciate it. Thank you very much. Please hit the like button. Let me ask you this here. I threw a couple names out in free agency here, and I want to throw some of these names out here for the Cowboys. Tell me something. I'm a fan of Stephon Gilmore. I didn't think he had a poor year last year.
God. Yes.
Okay. Why did the Cowboys let him roll?
Right now, I have been on the whole bandwagon of saying, okay, Diggs is coming back from an ACL.
Because I think Gilmore's better than Slay.
I agree. You got no argument there. But I would be bringing him back in for an insurance policy, because I don't know if Diggs is going to be 100%, because we're still saying he's not going to be ready to open up camp to be able to practice. Week 1 is in doubt. Why not bring back a Stephon Gilmore? I know Stephon wants to get 2 years. So far, he hasn't signed with anybody. Maybe the Cowboys are playing a game of chicken and saying, we'll wait, and maybe we'll get a better price. But that is truly one of those positions I would look at and say, we're better off if we get Stephon Gilmore as an insurance policy in case Diggs is not ready to return, without a doubt. And see, this is what ticks me off, because you keep wanting to blame Mike McCarthy, and I'm looking at this and saying, I got a question mark on my cornerback because of Diggs. I have question marks on my defensive line because we're relying on a rookie who had a shoulder surgery. Mozzie had shoulder surgery and could not practice in OTAs. But we're looking and saying, we're good there. And then we go in and we get Zeke Elliott, who kind of had a down year. I will say that being in New England definitely hurt him, but you're not looking at him being a premier back. And we're not doing anything to address those. That's what's my problem with it. And that's where I look and say, I can't blame the quarterback as much. I can't blame the coach as much. I got to blame the front office for not doing what they can to help the roster.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Harrell or somebody else said that Khalil Mack did not have 17 sacks last year. I think you need to check yourself, kid, because he did with the Chargers last year. He had 17 sacks last year, and he had 74 tackles with the Los Angeles Chargers last year. So before you say he didn't, by the way, if you look at it, let me see, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 21. I think he's had 25 sacks in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and the Chargers are looking at dealing him too. So to me, I mean, you know, you want to get guys on the ground. You're good with D. Lawrence. Okay, I get it there. I mean, but how about this one here? Let me throw this at you.
Yeah, he had 17 sacks last year, 8 the year before. 6 with the big.
He's had 25 sacks in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so we're talking about a guy who can get around the horn. And if you think about it, what has he got for his career? He's got 101 sacks.
Yep.
You're talking about a guy with 100 sacks in his career.
Charles had 100.5, to put that in perspective.
That's absolutely insane. I mean, you're talking about a guy, a couple more years, if he puts 10 plus more sack years up, you're talking about a guy who's going to knock on the Hall of Fame door. How about somebody like this, Mark, that could help? Because do you agree you need a little bit more help back there for Dak if you're going to be successful?
Yeah, you think?
Okay, why not do this? And I propose this. Now, the Eagles are in a better position than the Cowboys because I do think Barkley has got something left in the tank, and I think he's a good ball player. Why not a guy like Dalvin Cook, who a year ago, outside of that disastrous year a year ago, he comes off of 5 straight years of 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards to be exact. He's 28 years old. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. We're talking about a guy who, you got Zeke back there. At least if you had Zeke and a guy like Dalvin Cook both carrying the mail, doesn't that at least cover a little bit for Tony Pollard and the grand that you lost so that you could help him with more than play action? I'm not talking about 2 bell cow guys any longer. I'm talking about 2 guys that could at least make me have to coordinate the play action. Because with the guys you have now, I don't fear your play action.
I don't either. And I look at it and say, Dalvin Cook, last year, you could say could have been a year that he actually healed up because he only had 67 carries.
And the shitty Jets.
Yeah, on the Jets. So he didn't get battered and bruised, so his body should be in pretty good shape. And this one too, is he better than Rico Gathers? Yeah. Is he better than this, Mark? Yeah.
Hey, Mark, think about this. He's had a better career than Saquon Barkley, and everybody in Philly is tooting their horn over him about how good he is. This guy's had 5 straight years of his grand. This guy's had more 1,000-yard rushing yards at the same age as and he's had like a 1,500-yard year, more than anything Barkley ever did. I mean, and he was in Minnesota. And let's not forget about Minnesota, what they did. They moved not only off of him, they moved off of Cousins.
Yeah. Now, again, that's another guy. That's another guy whose best years are behind him, but he's definitely an improvement over what we have right now. And I think in the mix of things, I would definitely do that one. But we're talking about the Joneses that don't want to pay anybody.
So you tell me about this Rico kid, because I see Ultra Cowboy in here telling me was more explosive than Pollard last year. Do you buy that? Because I don't know who the hell it is.
He was the backup back. Rico, he was okay, but again, he's getting nicked up, and that's the problem with his career he has been injured more than he's been actually on the field. And so it's like we're waiting and waiting and waiting. Maybe he could have a breakout year, but I'm sitting here thinking about, last year was not great. I'm trying to pull up the stats here real quick.
And he did it mostly in a backup role too, right?
Yeah, he was. Tony Pollard was clearly the lead back. The Cowboys were going to run him into the ground. That's what they always do.
Why didn't they bring Tony Pollard back instead of Zeke?
Here's the problem with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, they screwed the pooch because Tony Pollard was good at being a guy with the ball in space. And he's a guy who you can't give more than about 10, 12, reps in a game. The year before when he had Zeke was out and he had like 22 carries, he was literally sucking wind. He's not a between the tackles type guy. He's more of a Robin as opposed to a Batman. That's where, the year before Zeke had 900 some yards. You had Tony Pollard with like 1,000. It was a good mix between the two of them. The thing was, when he had to carry the load, his yards per carry just dropped off the face of the earth.
Your surprises going into camp. Give me one name that you're going to be thinking that could be a surprise for the Cowboys as they look for camp in 2 weeks.
I'm going to say Cooper Beebe is going to be a lot better than people are going to be anticipating. And that's the one I can't wait to see. Between him and Brock Hoffman, because I think Brock Hoffman is going to be pushing him. Brock Hoffman playing, we're talking about center, of course. Brock Hoffman actually started 3 games last year for Biadasz, and I thought he actually played better than Biadasz. So he's not ready to relinquish this position. But I really think that Cooper Beebe, with his size, his strength, his mentality, is going to be a game changer for this offensive line.
Well, that quarterback can help him. You know how they can help him? Get the ball out of his hand quicker, having quicker plays, especially, look, when you have a new O-line, and the Cowboy O-line from 3 years ago is not the same. If I'm Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, what I'm doing, because I've got CD in the slot, I'm getting the ball out of the Cowboy quarterback's hands quicker because I don't have to be in pass probe that long, and we can have quicker routes. And get this, with quicker routes, you know what that also does with quicker routes? It also limits the opportunity on turnovers and also yards after the catch, which he's been really good at, CeeDee Lamb. So to me, if you utilize that kind of mentality there, you could bring along your old line. But to me, this comes down to the play caller, which Mike was great last year. I mean, the guy had 37 touchdowns, had 9 picks. He finished second in the MVP race. So, I mean, if they do that, the Cowboys could have something. But again, I think it comes down to being able to really have a defense think, is play action really real? Because if I don't bite on play action, I'm pinning my ears back on it, man. They've got to still come up with a rouge for the pass rush to be slowed down.
Well, we didn't have a great rushing attack last year. But here's the thing. You literally –
I don't think you needed one. But you had a little bit and enough.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What you just stated, if we took last year this time when Mike McCarthy was going to start calling plays, okay, he came through and everybody said, are you changing the whole offense? He said, no, we're changing about a third of the offense will change. He said, we're going to get rid of some things. We're going to do things. We're going to simplify it is actually what he said. We're going to simplify the offense, and we're going to be trying to get the ball out quicker. People took that as, oh, well, see, Dak Prescott, he's not smart enough to be able to do more complex things.
That's not true.
No, what they did was they realized we need to go 1, 2, 3, boom, that ball is out of here. And we're throwing to a spot. We're doing more timing routes, and we're getting the guys the ball in space where they can make plays. Kellen Moore has more slower developing combination routes where it gets to be the quarterback and the wide receiver have to be on the same page. And see, that to me was the biggest difference of the Texas Coast offense that Mike McCarthy had was it's going to be right now. We're getting rid of the ball.
But you had more talent when Kellen was there.
Yeah. But the sack numbers went down and the touchdowns went up and the interceptions went down by doing that.
Yeah, supposedly it's like $18,000. Hoss, at the end of the day, I want a disciple, $18,000 a day for a guy who's going to make $37 million, maybe $40 million per year. Okay, no disrespect, but that's like Roy Rogers money. Going to buy yourself a Roy Rogers. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's
regardless, he'll be there before the season opener. He may not be happy, but he'll be there one way or the other. And I think the Cowboys do get it done. I don't think they'll get it done before training camp because they're just the Cowboys and they like the drama.
Couple last ones here for you, Mark. You're comfortable with the O-line?
We've had an offensive line that's been in flux for quite a while. Tyron Smith, believe it or not, over the last 4 years has only averaged 7 games a year. We've had problems with right tackle between Lyle Collins and his hip, and then, of course, getting Terrence Steele as a rookie who was terrible. Biadasz has always left you wanting. Zach Martin has been the stable thing. We've had problems with guard until we got Tyler Smith. So the offensive line not being good. You guys have a stable offensive line. I envy what you guys have had for about the last 5 or 6 years.
No, it's about 20 years.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that they could do is develop offensive linemen. They've gone from Howard Mudd. They've gone to Jeff Stoutland. And let's not forget, too, when the Cowboys were sensational, the Cowboys had Tony Weiss.
Yep.
And when Tony Weiss was in the building, he was one of the better offensive line coaches. You know, it's funny, Mark. Everyone always assumes because Dallas Cowboys had the greatest O-line of all time, and I've broached this with you before. Well, all those guys were Landry guys outside of Stebnoski when they first got there. I mean, Nate was a guy who was a USFLer that came in. He was actually a rescue
too, and you're too fat. Get rid of this guy.
Hey, Mark Tuney was a defensive tackle at one time at UCLA. They converted him.
Late-round draft picks.
Right, and you had Crawford Kerr was a third-round pick, maybe one of your higher picks. He played guard for you. Then you got Kevin Gogan over from the 49ers. These were all things that Landry did. But you guys still only won 4 games the final year in Landry's last season. And then when Jimmy gets in there, the linchpin of the whole thing was getting Emmett. Once you got Emmett in the building, it made that O-line the greatest O-line in modern-day history and what you guys were able to do. I mean, that O-line, but I like this O-line here too.
Sadly, the game had passed Tom Landry by. He was
still in the flex defense too, playing a yard off the ball, but he was going to a nose. That's why he drafted Noonan. He drafted Noonan, and he brought me in because they were going to go to a 3-4. He was getting away from that, and he was getting out of the flex. If he had been given another year, he was going to. They were not going to play the flex. I don't know if Randy would have still been there or not, but. All right, let me leave you with this one here. As you go into training camp, you fear more the Eagles or do you fear more the Niners?
Oh, man, I feel more the Niners. I'm sorry. No disrespect to the Eagles. It's always a fight, but it's like I know you guys. We know what to expect with you. The 49ers, they've been really, really good, but I do believe that the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. And you look at how everybody turns and cycles over. You just don't know. We could be, that 5-12 team next year. I mean, how things go in the NFL. The Giants didn't think that they were going to be in the basement last year. And the same thing could happen with the Eagles. You just don't know. An injury here, an injury there could be the difference. I honestly believe, and I'm not trying to put my hater glasses on, but I really think the Eagles are going to be taking a big step back this year.
I think they take a step back because they're not going to have enough time to get that offense in sync.
That's it.
You're just not going to install the things that you want to install. You had all that same. The only thing that's different for the Eagles this year is Barkley. And last year's running back had 1,100 yards. The year before that, he had 1,200. There's no difference. And last year they had 17 games and they never got on the same page. Now, he's a more experienced play caller. Yes, that's what the conversation in Philly is. That's true. However, is he the right one? Remember something about this. Vic Fangio was asked to leave in Miami. He was asked to leave. Okay? They never went after him. They let him go. He was the highest paid coordinator. And the Eagles blew his doors off last year offensively with the guy they fired. Now, I mean,
he's the
right guy.
And he's doing a complete rebuild, basically.
But here's the one thing that I will say about you guys. I think you guys are tanking.
I think you're tanking. I honestly don't know what we're doing.
I think you're tanking.
What doesn't make sense to me is
I don't see anywhere on your football team where you have an advantage going into a game. You have no advantage. You have no advantage in your O-line.
You could say that, but Dan, you could say the exact same thing about last year.
But the Eagles have an advantage.
You had an advantage.
Your issues are coaching.
Okay, but here's the thing, Dan. Every year after we were 6-10 and Dak Prescott was injured, we didn't do anything to get any better. We did not do anything. After the next year, we go 12-5. We get rid of Amari Cooper, let go Randy Gregory, got rid of Lyle Collins, got rid of Connor Williams. You could look and say you're tanking because they didn't replace any of those players. We literally started that season with two guys that had never caught a touchdown pass starting at wide receivers with a second-year wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb.
Ultra
Cowboys. How could you not say? How is
Clown
this any
Dan,
different than those years?
8 All-Pros, and you were fucking completely destroyed by the Packers. With all those young guys, you were annihilated by Arizona, and you got beat by a football team that went back to a 1927 offense that only threw the ball 10 times. Who are you kidding with your 8 All-Pros guy? Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry.
The only reason that they're all pros is because they have the star in their hat.
Thank you.
If
I
they're
hate to say that.
else, like in Tennessee, they're nowhere. And Bland was so overrated. You take those pick sixes to the house out, he was constantly toast last year.
But you know what, though? Those plays are big plays that matter.
They are.
Here's what I will say. The guy was a 5th-round draft pick in his second year.
He's overachieved.
So, yeah, right. But now we got the interception part down. Now we're going to work on your coverage skills. And you could look at the same thing about Diggs, his year, for second year where he ended up getting all the interceptions and stuff. The knock was he still gives up a lot of big plays, which he did. The next year, the interceptions went down, but his coverage got better. And
do you believe the Cowboys are the 6th best roster in the league?
No.
I mean,
no.
Dan,
here's what happens. See, you forget the whole game. The Cowboys lose in the playoffs. They're the worst team in the football. Jerry Jones sucks at GM. The quarterback is terrible. The coach is on the hot seat. Then we go through free agency. The Cowboys still suck. They don't do anything to help the roster or anything like that, right? They're a terrible team. You would think that literally they're the worst team in the NFL. They go through the draft. They got a C+, a B-. They didn't really address their needs. They should have got this guy, that guy, and everything else. But then by training camp gets here, it's always, well, the Cowboys roster is really good.
You think you have a better 53-man roster than Washington?
Yes. That one I would say.
They got the best linebacking core. They got the best linebacking core in the NFC East. They got a better duo of wide receivers than you do. They have a better
quarterback.
What's that? That's the question. Absolutely going to be
okay.
If you get anything like a CD or a CJ Stroud, and I'm not saying he's going to have to put up those kind of numbers, but in that division, if they put up some respectable numbers with the quarterback position, Johan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, you don't have that in Dallas.
Yeah, but they've got this jinx in Washington. It doesn't matter who you are as a quarterback. When you go there, your careers go to die. Just for whatever reason, it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your credentials are, you've set up for failure. Now maybe they've changed, but until I see something different, I'm not expecting a whole lot from it.
Well, bro, I'll tell you what, we shall see, man. I mean, hey, by the way, how was your 4th?
The 4th was good. My 4th was good. My air conditioning was not working in my house, so I had to come home and get my brother over here and get it working. But other than that, it was great.
Tell folks how they can find you, brother.
JAKIB Sports Report, Mark Holmes. Just look for me on Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, YouTube and Facebook and stuff. And hopefully you'll be seeing me in about 3 weeks at training camp with Dan Sileo.
And you want them tickets, right?
If you can get them. If not, I'll work on getting those as well.
I
I was hoping that we'd go together there.
Hold on for a second here. Big Sills. Well, wait a minute. No, you did help me out already. Okay. Yeah. No. You did help me out. All right. Wait. Okay.
I did help you out.
Wait, now Now I'm being grateful. Now I'm being not grateful here.
Oh, Lordy. I come in here every week to actually get the shit kicked out of me. I was actually getting ready to get the first aid kit.
Here's what Xander says. Mark doesn't know Big Sills yet. Big Sills ain't showing. It's not that. Hey, Xander, the Cowboy camp is not that far away. It's not that far. We're not talking about a 6-hour flight. Put my ass in one of those narrow plane flights.
It's nice and cool there too.
These guys fly me in a prop plane across the country, man, sitting out the window there, and I got a seat this big. And Big Sills needs a little more room. I'm a roomy guy.
Oh, Lordy. I hear you on that one.
Hey, I'm more of a roomy guy, man. They put me in coach back there with the damn with the suitcases and shit. And I'm like, no, this ain't working here, man. I need wheels up. How you doing?
All right. Well, I'll see you next Wednesday, bro.
All right, man. Hey, Mark, I appreciate it, brother. Hang on here for a second. Sydney family. Brandy gets better, Mark.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. One of our great fans was in a head-on car crash.
Oh, geez.
150 mile an hour was the crash thing about 2 months ago, and he's
woo!
Right now.
There you go.
Oh, damn!
Mark up Dak's ass.
Okay. And on that note, it's time to get the hell out of here.
Time to giddy up. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot for doing that, man. I think Big Marshall just helped me out there. Mark, thanks a lot, brother. I appreciate it.
Peace out.
You got it. That is Mark Holmes. Don't forget to check him out there. Absolutely, man. Hey, Marshall, I think you saved it there. You can find Mark up Dak's ass. Pretty funny. Pretty funny. We'll turn it back around here a little bit. Get your thoughts, and then Xander's going to join us. That'll be at the bottom of the hour. You guys are killing it right now on Twitter, believe it or not. Well over 1,000 people are watching the show. Thank you guys for tuning in on all the platforms, Facebook, on Twitter, on our YouTube show, of course. We really appreciate it. Please hit the like button. Thank you guys so much for doing this. When we come back, we'll talk with Xander. By the way, you know what I'll do with Xander? We'll take a look at some of those guys that are one-year deals. The Eagles are going to have 27 players. 27 players they're going to have that are going to be free agents at the end of this year. Not all of them are important. We'll hit on them. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.